Okay, we are live. Hi, Barry.
Well, hello, Magdalene.
Barry Griffiths, live from Las Vegas, aka Barnold, Barry Poppins.
Well, yeah, that was a surprise. That I
Thanks for agreeing
didn't
to
bring
do
with.
my behind the biz.
Yeah, you're welcome. I would say it's
Yeah,
my pleasure, but I don't want to lie when I'm recorded.
what you really mean is you're so ecstatic to see me because you missed me all these months from Ka.
Maybe for all those people who don't know, maybe you should explain our relationship before they think
Yes.
I'm a neighbor
So
that we're not very nice to each other.
Barry was super fortunate to come to Ka from Cirque du Soleil in Las Vegas and have to have his hair and makeup, mainly hair, done by myself and my co-wiggies every day. And so every day he was lucky enough to see us and have us do his hair and help him along. And it was his most favorite time of day.
So, for the people who don't know, I'm guessing probably a lot of people that do know, but it's a love-hate relationship. Megan loves me and I hate her, so it's pretty.
Not
It's
true.
like
He
this. It
you brought me
says
chocolate.
it says black and white. Yeah, I had to. I don't know. I messed up or something, right? Was it your birthday or something?
Nuh-uh. No, you were being genuinely nice. I almost fell over. It was crazy. I thought they were lying.
I have my moments.
Yes, you do. Just like this one, doing this so I can pick your brain for a little bit and talk to you about
Yeah, that won't take
um,
picking up.
how you got to. I mean, you had a pretty interesting career so far in different disciplines in entertainment. And then now you're moving into real estate investment on a very serious level. So I wanted to talk about, first of all, you're from Wales, if you didn't recognize the funny accent that he has.
And you don't have an accent, right?
I don't, right?
Yeah, yeah, of course.
You don't
So,
hear
yeah, I hear it. You go to the UK and ask them if you've got an accent.
it. I've been wondering if it's going to come back since I've been back in Texas, but I
You
think
have an
so
accent.
far
You have an American accent. You don't think you have a like?
it's just
Hey,
standard
y'all.
American.
You
Standard American. Where in Wales are you from?
want me to give me my backstory? Or are you just interested in?
Well, no, I want to know where
Okay.
you're from in
Okay.
Wales.
I'm from Tremaddock, a place called Tre Maddock, which means Maddock is town. It's a tiny little town. There's about 200 people that live there. And the story is that it used to all be underwater 200 plus years ago, maybe more. And then they built, so not a dam, but they called it a cob. So I don't even know how to explain it, but it stops, the sea would go out and come back in. So they built this massive cob that stops the water from coming in and created all this land. So there's two towns. There's called Porth Madoc, which means Maddox Port, and then
Okay.
there's Trim, which is right next to where I live. It's just half a mile away, and then where I live is Tre Maddox, which is Maddox is town. So William Alexander Maddox was the name of this guy, and he created both these towns by building this cob to stop the water come in. So that's where the name
And
of
there's
my
no pool there.
pool.
I just remember Julie, your wife, being like, they don't have a pool.
No, there's no pools where I live. No, you don't need it.
It just made
There's
me
plenty
laugh.
of plenty of rivers and lakes and sea and water everywhere, but it's so seldomly warm there that you don't you use
Oh,
your
that's fair.
you use your pool for about 2 days a year. So
Not like in Vegas.
yeah, and interestingly, I'm about 45 minutes away from Llanfair Pwllgwyngyll Dolgeri Llwyndrapwy Llan Cecilia Gogogoch, which
That's
is
the one that's the longest name.
yeah, I think has the longest place name in the world. Yeah, so it's like when you enter the town, the sign is like just like 10 times bigger than any normal one. Yeah.
That's so crazy. Now, how did you go from being in a small town in Wales to getting into professional wrestling? Like,
Yeah,
were you just like, I'm going to do this? And then, like, how did that happen?
it's quite random. So uh, it is really random, especially being in the UK. So yes, stop crying.
I know, you're making me cry.
So the story is so my great grandfather started a business, a carpentry business and an undertaking business. Because what happened was, yeah,
People would
because
die.
what happened was back in the day, if you were a carpenter, you'd make the coffin, so it made sense that you were also the undertaker. It was one-stop shop, you know. So he started the business, and he would also make the wheels for the horse and carriages. So that's how
Okay.
far. So they made the wheels and they made the coffins, and they were undertakers. Passed it on to my granddad. He passed it on to my dad, and there was an expectation that I would go into the family business, and I kind of did for a while. I did some undertaking myself, saw my fair share of dead bodies, which actually didn't bother me that much. And
It
was a
didn't bother you?
no, not really to start off with, but after a while it did. It did, and I got past that, and it's just like I don't know that where I live, they were mostly elderly people, so it wasn't like this
Murders or anything.
yeah or anything like that. You're like, okay, it's not, you don't want anyone to die, but they've had their life, they're in their 80s, and it's sad for the family. Don't get me wrong, but it is what it is, right? So I did that. I was also a carpenter, the world's carpenter in the history of the world. Because actually, what happened was I went to university. I hated it. I had no interest in it. I went to university and tried my hand at being a student, and it didn't work. I had no self discipline in that. I'm not good at
That's
school.
really surprising because you eat a
Yeah,
lot of broccoli and chicken on the daily basis that normal people would not have the discipline to do.
there's a different self discipline, right?
Oh,
When it comes to that kind of stuff, and I do have a lot more these days. But back then I went to Cardiff, which is the capital of Wales, and just basically blew all my student loan, and we get a student loan in the UK, which I still haven't paid off. um, on alcohol and going out and having a good time, and it was fun, and I enjoyed living there. But after 2 years, I was like, okay, I'm not
now
going to do
what?
yeah, I'm not going to do this. So I ended up working for my dad, just doing some laboring work and just doing this and that. And I was like, okay, I'm here. I might as well get some kind of qualification. So I decided carpentry, because they also did plastering and bricklaying and stuff like that. They did a bit of everything. But so I decided to do carpentry. So I went to carpentry, but wasn't something I chose to do. It was just something I have nothing else to do. There's not a lot of jobs where I live. Like, there's 200 people where I live. Can you imagine the amount of jobs there's not, it's not a plethora of different types
They
of
all
jobs.
have them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it was like either that, or I don't know what else I would have been. So I did that. Didn't really like it. Didn't mind the undertaking part, actually, because it was fairly easy, apart from, if you could detach yourself emotionally from what it was just, you did it, you provided a service, and, and I could see that you were providing service for people at their worst time. So that was kind of,
Yeah.
I respected that job. But in the meantime, I was a soccer player growing up. Sports. I played every sport under the sun, but I was a soccer player. And then I kind of blew up my knee a bit one year and couldn't really play anymore. And was training a lot anyway, going to the gym and running and everything. But I really focused on going to the gym, and I love going to the gym. It's just something that it was like a duck taken to water, right? I just loved it. It was just, is that a saying? Is that the right saying?
It is. Good job.
Okay. I know how good you are at sayings, right?
Yeah.
So I just loved it, loved it, loved the going to the gym, the eating healthy, everything. Just really enjoyed it. And after a while, I was creating a physique for myself. I was 6'6", 280 pounds, probably lean, and and I was fairly athletic from my sports days. So I was like, what can I do? I don't want to do bodybuilding. That's not for me. I don't have no interest in that whatsoever. But I've got a physique, and wrestling came on the TV or something, and I hadn't really watched it when I was young, because it just wasn't on TV for me. It wasn't that I didn't like it. It just wasn't. We had 4 channels growing up. Believe it or not, yeah.
Yes.
Until I was like 14, 15, I had 4 TV channels. Imagine how terrible that was. So wrestling really wasn't on. I knew about it, but I hadn't really seen it, right? I'd seen bits and bobs of it. And it came on the TV, and I was watching these big guys, and I was like, I feel like I can do that. So I started, figuring out how I can do it. Because in the UK, wrestling is seen as something completely different to here. Like, it's seen as like fake fighting here, and here there still has that connotation, but it's entertainment. People really respect it here. Like, oh, you're a wrestler? That's really cool. There, it's like, oh, you're a wrestler.
They're like, what are you doing?
You're a wrestler. And honestly, that's when I first
Really?
started training. Yeah, when I first started training, and especially being in a small town, which, yeah, I love where I'm from, but they weren't always the most open. Some people were, I had friends and family that were, but you could tell when people like, oh, how's the wrestling going? You could kind of tell that underbelly was there, and not knocking it, is just how it was, so it was like, honestly, a little bit challenged to start off with, because it was, it wasn't that I was embarrassed by what I was doing. I believed in what I did, and I was, could see like a future in there and something that I could work hard on and achieve some goals. But it's challenging when a lot of people around you
Yeah.
don't respect what you do. And I think most of us want to be respected, right? It's not like no one's like, oh, yeah, I'd love to not be respected, right? We all somewhat care what other people's opinions
Pour
are.
my heart and soul into this thing that nobody really
Yeah,
cares about.
yeah.
Or
So luckily, it eventually paid off. But so I was doing that. I was training on the weekends in wrestling. I would drive 2 hours to a training school on Saturday. I drove 2 hours home. Probably go to the gym then Saturday. And I was pretty dedicated, actually, looking back. And I would work all week as a carpenter and an undertaker for my dad. And so I was doing that for a while, doing both. And then there'd be shows midweek. So I'd finish work at a little bit early, drive to the wrestling show, get home that night, and like do all that stuff, right? And you're probably interested. And it was also a pain in my backside because the night before I'd have to shave my body. I didn't have to, but I wanted to because I understood that. So I'd have to shave my whole body, fake tan my whole body the night before, then go to work like orange as hell. And so that also added to the respect because I worked in the construction. I don't know how much you know about the construction business, but they're not the most forgiving people in the world, So
they're like dressing room A.
Dressing room A is tame. Trust me, dressing room A is nothing compared to like.
One day you're gonna wax instead of shaving. It's just gonna save time. You can get through it.
It's way too painful. I tried that one time on my chest, and they got halfway up. I paid like £40 or something for it, which is like $60. Got halfway done. I was like, no, stop. This is not for me. I'll shave. I don't keep the money. Keep whatever you have. So I'm out of here. I'm done. This is not. I can't take this anymore.
Man.
Yeah. So anyway, so I was doing that, and then I was wrestling part-time, and then I can't remember. Oh, I think so. I had a mentor, so I got to talk about my mentor because this is really. So I met this. So the way I got into wrestling was I was trying to find out how to do it. Right, I was trying to find out how you get it because it wasn't readily available. It wasn't like there was wrestling schools everywhere.
Right.
It wasn't like I knew people that had been a wrestler. So it so happened that a little bit after I sort of had this idea, and I kept it completely to myself at the time. There was a wrestling show that came to my town. It was a tiny little wrestling show, but it was promoted by this famous Welsh. Because we speak Welsh where I'm from, and so we have Welsh TV, and we have like not everyone in Wales speaks Welsh. It's like 1/3 probably, maybe not even that of the Welsh people.
Oh.
There's only probably about 3 million people that live in the whole of Wales, just to give people who are watching this an idea. So, but he was quite famous in the Welsh speaking circuit because he was a wrestler. He created a personality for himself. He was on TV a lot, and he was running the show. But he wasn't wrestling. I think he was in his late 60s, if not 70s, at that point. So somehow I went to the show, but the show was like in a field. They were using like an old chandelier for the lighting, and the ring was sinking one corner. So it was like it wasn't the most glamorous show that I've ever been to in my life. So but I went to the show and ended up meeting this guy and started talking to him. We spoke in Welsh, and because I told you there's not that many Welsh speaking. So he was a big Welsh nationalist. He was like big into Wales and keeping the language alive, and Wales needs their independence and stuff like that. So hit it off with him. He started me training, so I started training with him. And he was but when I got to know him, he was a crazy guy. What an unbelievable character this guy was. So he started, the way his introduction was wrestling was when he was a teenager. He went away with a circus. No, not the circus, a traveling fair. So there was traveling fairs there. There still is now. There was a lot more back then. So he went traveling all over Europe, Sweden, Denmark, all these countries. And he was with the wrestling and boxing booths, and they had wrestling and boxing booths there. And what they would do, they would go to these towns, and there would be a wrestler that worked for the fair and a boxer that would work for the fair, and a few of them, and they would challenge all comers. So it would be, are you still there? So they challenge all comers. So it would be if you can last 5 rounds with a boxer, for example, you get £5, and £5 was probably like maybe $500 back then. But they, being carnival people, they were cannies, right? They had all kinds of tricks. So he told me all kinds of tricks that they used to get up to. So they had one where they had a hole in the corner of the ring. So the guy would shadow the challenger, into the corner of the ring. And the moment his foot fell in the ring, in the hole, whack, they would knock him down. Another one would be like they had the gloves were made out of horsehair back then. And he told me if you just give a little slit on the front of here, it would be like glass. So if the guy was giving a good fight, they would just slit the thing, and it would, all you need was one slap and it would be over. Another thing they did as well was that they would, if the boxer was on top, the round would go. It was supposed to be 5 5-minute rounds, But if the boxer was on top, it might go 10 minutes because nobody had watches and stopwatches back then. Right? We're talking 50 years ago, 60 years ago now. So they would go 7, 8, 9 minutes if he was on top. But if he was losing, it would only go 2 minutes. So he told me like the challengers literally had no chance. There was no way that we were going to win. And the boxing booth was always set up in between the ring of fire. So the guys on the motorcycles going through the ring of fire and the burlesque show. So the burlesque was basically the stripper. So it was, so that was his education, he said. And he started actually collecting bobbings, what they call bobbings. So what they would do is they would at the end of the wrestling and the boxing, they would say, hey, we've got a local orphan here today. He's one of your own. Unfortunately, you know, we're struggling a lot for money, but he's a local orphan. He's one of your own. Hopefully you can find it in your heart to give this boy a little bit of your money. And he would go around with his tin pot looking for, and the people would give him things, and then he would collect that money. So it gave you an idea of what kind of character. And that makes him sound bad. He wasn't. He was like
I love it. It makes him sound like a character.
Just how, unbelievable character. Yeah, unbelievable character. So I started wrestling. So he was my mentor, right? He's, you know, maybe no wonder how I turned out like I was, right? He was, but an unbelievable guy.
Makes more sense.
But he was an amazing man. He's the reason I am here today, doing everything I am, without a shadow of a doubt. His name was Orig Williams. Unbelievable character. So I met him. He started taking me to train. We used to train in a hotel on a wooden floor. Me and this guy from India who was like this Indian sand wrestler that he knew his dad, so he flew him over to do his dad a favor because he used to wrestle with his dad many years ago. He used to go to India and Pakistan all the time to do shows there because I don't know why, because I guess they did well there. He said they would sell like 40,000 seats of stadiums out, and people were like, it was just crazy. Yeah, oh my God. This guy had the most unbelievable stories ever. He was just such a character. So anyway, he got me wrestling, started wrestling, but I was wrestling there, you know, in front of 200, 150 people max, you know, absolutely. That was a good show, you know. Sometimes it would be 30, 40 people, but I was doing that. And through him, I started doing some TV appearances in the Welsh language and started meeting some people. And he was just crazy. He was always giving it the big one, always telling me what to say. When I first started, he took a center page ad in the local newspaper, not in the local newspaper, but the area newspaper. So we went like to a big area, and I was the center to 2-page spread saying that I said that all rugby players are big girl blouses. Like I would take on any rugby player any day of the week. I never said. He just told me when it came out. Like literally, he said, "Oh, yeah,
what are you doing?"
Like, I live with nothing but rugby players. Luckily, nothing ever came from it. Nothing ever but you know, rugby players are pretty tough, and they're usually in a group of 15 to 20 guys as well. So that was like one of the first things that he ever did. And he said, no, I know what I'm doing. I did this myself years ago. It's just going to create a hype. He was always about creating a hype. Like he was. Well,
I mean, it's very like P.T. Barnum type thing to just kind of put anything out there just to get any kind of talk going, whether it's controversial or great or negative, but it's just so you're in some kind of conversation.
Yeah, well, he understood that. He was ahead of his time in a way. He was not with technology, but he was ahead of his time in terms of marketing. He understood how to create hype, how to, you know, get your name out there, how to get people to hear about you, you know, because he's done it all his life and he just figured out how to do it. But he was so against technology. Him and his wife shared a mobile phone, but he had a book. He had this old book that with everyone's number and contact details. So he asked me one time, he's like, hey, we should call so-and-so. Let's call so-and-so now. He's like, okay, cool. Let me get it up on my phone. No, I've got it. And he would open his book. And he'd be like, wait, yes. And the pages are falling out. I was like, oh, wait, I've got it. It's right here. I've got it. No, I've got it. Wait, I'm calling him right now. No, I've got it. It's like he's answering the phone now. No, let me that. That's how he was. He was so funny. He was hilarious. So anyway,
how you got into the WWE was he?
Yeah. So what happens before that was that we would speak to all these TV people all the time. He's always hyping me up and all this. And we spoke to someone one day, and he's like, "Hey, do you know they're filming a new Gladiator TV show, like the UK Gladiators? They're making."
Oh, that's right.
They're making a remake of it. was like, oh, really? Can you give me the number of like the casting agent or something? He said, he's like, yeah, so I think I can. Guy calls back 5 minutes later. Okay, here's the number. Calls the guy. He's like, hey, yeah, we're looking. Oh, okay. I have the perfect guy for you. He's the best at giving spiels. He's like, I've got the perfect guy. He's 6'6", 280 pounds, and he's built like a Greek god. And I was like, okay, that's how he was. So he had that strong accent as well. So he got, and they were like, oh, okay, we're interested. Can you send us information? So I send the information, send pictures away and stuff like that. And they called back, said, yeah, cool, we got an audition coming up, blah, blah, blah. How quickly can you grow a beard? And I was like, wow, I don't know, maybe
like a day.
Yeah, no, like a week or two, maybe. I was like, okay. So I told him that. I told Ulrich this. I was like, oh, he's like, okay, let me get back to you. I'll make a phone call. He's like, okay, I've spoken to a makeup artist at the S4C. S4C was the Welsh-speaking TV channel. I've spoken to a makeup artist at S4C, and they can glue on a beard for you. So if you meet so and so in a day or two, they'll patch on a beard for you. I was like, I don't know how much of a good idea. I'm going to be physically active here. I can't just. I had nothing at the time. I was like completely clean shaven.
You're like a baby face.
So he wanted them to glue a beard. Like he was legit thought that they could glue a beard onto my face. Like I was like. Anyway, it so happened that it was months later until the audition I grew a beard, and I ended up getting into UK Gladiators, and I was Gladiator Goliath, only for one series, but it was such a fun experience. We went down to London, we lived in London for 5 or 6 weeks at a hotel, and we were it was the Sherwood Studios, I believe this is where they filmed James Bond.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So we filmed there for 5 weeks. They had this massive, elaborate set there. It was so much fun that we got to do all these like fun games, interact with the crowd, and just there for 5 weeks doing all this fun stuff. So from that, it really kicked on my wrestling. I was wrestling. So another funny story. I don't want to talk about Ori too much, but he's bringing up all these stories. So he made, and I told you he was old school, right? He made all these posters before that, and I was front and center at all these posters. So he printed like before I got the Gladiators gig, he printed like, I don't know, maybe 100, 200 of these posters that he was going to print for all these different shows. And he would just write in where the show was, So it was just like a big poster and blah, blah, blah. And then he would be like, here in so-and-so tonight, blah, 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 this time. So, but I'm clean shaven. And in the show, I've got this massive beard, Gladiator Goliath with this massive beard. So what does he do? So I'm first show back since doing Gladiators. I drive up to town and I start seeing the posters. I'm like, okay, but I'm in my car, I can't see. I get closer to the hall itself and I see a big, massive poster. And I'm like, what is that on my face? He's only gone in and used a permanent marker to go over my face on the posters. The posters that advertise the show. Oh my God. And it wasn't even a good job. It was like gaps. Like, I'm like, oh my God, this guy is unbelievable.
You saved them, right? And framed them?
What's that?
Did you save them, the posters?
No, I wish I did. There might be some. I'll have to ask. He's since passed away I'll have to ask his wife. There might be some somewhere, because that would be brilliant to see that.
Yeah. Have that in your office.
Yeah, that would be, yeah. So anyway, so the Gladiators thing really took off, pushed my wrestling a little bit more. I was more of a name, started wrestling more and more. And the whole time we had, so how it works with WWE is how they usually have tryouts in the UK when they're there filming for TV. That's how they usually sign most of the talents. And you go there and you do a practice match or whatever in front of them. And, it's really intimidating actually, because all the guys that have signed, they're there watching. So they're like judging you, blah, blah, blah. So, but there was this, and they have a scout. So there was a scout that actually worked for Oregon, part of the team. And he was trying to get me to sign for a while before that, to get there, because he knew that I was what they looked for. At the time they had a certain look and I fit that look that they were looking for. It's changed a lot since then. But he was always trying to get me, because he got a fee for, if they signed me, he got he got $1,000 or something. So he was always trying to get me to go. And then Orig was always trying to get me to stay, because 2 reasons as well. He was good to me. So he said, he was right. You don't get a second chance to make a first impression. I stay here and learn your trade. But also, he wanted me because I was like, I think I was making him money, right? You know what I mean? I wasn't the star, but I kind of was, right? You know what I mean? So I was like,
yeah,
it was an asset to him, I guess, right? So he wanted kind of to keep me right. He ultimately wanted the best for me, without a doubt. So anyway, I was down in London one time doing something, and WWE were at the O2 Arena, and the scout goes to me, "Hey, you're in London?" I was like, "Yeah. Why don't you come over and just meet them?" And I was like, "It's been a few years now." I was like, "Ugh, okay, I guess." I wasn't sure, so I was just going there. I just went there, so I turned up into the O2 Arena, and he's there. I start talking to this scout, blah blah blah. And then the guy that signs people comes along. So he sees me, and he's like, "Hey, how you doing? All right, come to my office." And I didn't wrestle or anything. We go in the office, and within 2 minutes of being in the office, they offer me a contract and saying, "Hey, yeah, if you want to, we'll sign you for this. We'll pay you this much, and we'll fly you over to Florida." And I was like, "Whoa." So I was like, "Okay." And so, I'm not saying that bragging. It was just how it happened. There was,
I feel like that's how this happens a lot of times, though, is that you have all of this buildup and culmination in your career, and then there's some chance meeting, or it's like the right place at the right time because you put in all this work ahead of time. You know what I mean? It's kind of a quiet moment.
But I got to be. I think it wasn't a chance encounter. I think it would have without a doubt happened, whether it was that year, the next year, or the following year, right? I think
you just happened to be in London at that moment.
They were what I wanted for sure, right? Because he took one look at me, and without even seeing me wrestle or see anything else, like, he wanted to sign me. But yeah, there was a lot of luck involved, I guess, in that. I happened to be in London, and but I do agree that the more. A lot of people, it sounds like they got lucky, right? But it's not necessarily luck, right? It's because you worked hard and you kept doing what you did, and
consistency.
You did what other people weren't willing to do, right? And then you get lucky, right? There's a golf quote, right? It's like the more I practice, his name's that Gary player, famous golf player. I'm sure you know exactly who it is, right?
Exactly.
But, the more I practice, the luckier I get, right?
Yeah, but it's so true across the board.
The harder you work, and the more you put yourself out there, and the more you do stuff, that without doubt you're going to find some luck along the way. So that, yeah, absolutely. So sorry if I'm turning this into a really long story. So, but from there, I signed with them. I waited a little bit. I tried to get some more money, I think, from what they were offering, because if they are usually, I'd heard, like, if whatever they offer first, they're willing to offer more, but they actually didn't budge. So within 6 months of that, I think I was over in the US. I moved to the US with literally 2 suitcases and maybe $2,000 in my pocket, and that was it. No connection. I'm so bad at preparation, right? But I just went over there, didn't have anywhere to stay. I had messaged someone before I left, said, "This is what time I land. Can you come pick me up, maybe?" So I landed. I didn't have a rental car or anything, and luckily they were there waiting for me, and they took me to a hotel, and stayed at a hotel, and just kind of went from there. Yeah, it was crazy.
And now you have an action figure.
Yeah, it's wild, pretty wild. Yeah, and then I was there for about. So they have a training facility in Tampa. So I moved to Tampa, right? A small town boy. I told you how small my town is, and kind of the life there. It rains all year round, pretty much. We have some pretty beautiful landscape there. The mountains and the rolling hillside and some beaches, but nothing like the beaches of Tampa, and St. Pete and Clearwater, all around there. So imagine, I'm 28 years of age, and I ended up on the beach there, and it's just like, wow, this is just a change of scenery completely, So I was there in Tampa for about a year in the training facility, and then I made my debut in January of 2011 on TV.
Wow.
From there, did some pay-per-views, traveled the world, did a lot of really fun, cool stuff. Probably went to almost every city in the US. Couldn't tell you which ones, because I could tell you what the hotel looked like. I could tell you what the arena looked like. I could tell you what the gym looked like.
The blur.
Yeah, because you're just and I wish that's a regret for sure, that I didn't take in more stuff and enjoy it more. But at the time, you're caught up and you think it's going to last forever, right? Same with when I was traveling. You'd fly to so many places, right? And you get there and you're exhausted, right? You get there at lunchtime, and you don't have to be in the arena till later on that night, and you're like, well, should I go explore a little bit, or should I go to and the nap always won, unfortunately.
Well, how did you go? I never really understood how the call to come to Vegas happened. We knew so I've been at the show for a while because you started in what year? 2015?
15, the end of 2015, December. Yeah, I got there December 1st, 2015. Yeah.
Yeah, so we knew that they were going to be changing up that role. And then, but we didn't know, like, did they just call people from around the country? Like, we didn't know how that happened. And casting at Cirque, that's exactly what they do. They're scouts and they're looking for people because you were in Florida at the time, weren't you?
Yeah, I was in Florida. Yeah. So apparently, what happened was that a guy called Al Light,
Oh,
what's
yeah,
his
Al. He's a
Al?
coach at Cirque.
Yeah, great guy. I love Al and Silka, the AD, artistic director at the time. They were thinking about changing the role of the chief actor at the time, and they were trying to figure out what they wanted. And Al had the idea about a professional wrestler, and Silka, at the time wasn't sure. And they told me this story afterwards. She wasn't sure if that was a good fit, and she had these preconceptions about what wrestlers were and all this. So I said, hey, there's a local show here in a bit. Let's go watch the local show. She went to the local show and had a blast, and was like, okay, yeah, I can kind of see that's what
Get it.
would work. Yeah. So they told the casting agents or whatever. So they in turn got in touch with WWE, and I wasn't working for WWE at the time because obviously WWE is not going to give their talent, people that are on their roster, to another company. Even though it's not the same, it's still competing for a certain market space. So they contacted a few people that weren't working for WWE, but I guess that were on had good relationship, and I'd left on good terms and everything like that. So I randomly got a voicemail one day. I remember the voicemail, and it said something along the lines, "Hey, we've got a job opportunity for you. If you're interested, call us back and we'll tell you more about it." So I was like, "Oh,
you're like."
Well, I thought they were going to offer me my job back, because it seemed like, what kind of job? A job opportunity? What else are they going to be talking about?
Oh, the WWE called and left you a message.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh,
so,
not Cirque, being like, we have a job opportunity.
No. Yeah. So it's like, okay. So I called them back, and they were like, hey, yeah, Cirque du Soleil is looking to fill a role, and I think a wrestler would be perfect for it. Here's some of the details. It was like, what?
What?
That was like so random, really. It was really so random. So obviously, and they said, you send your stuff away to them, like your pictures and some videos and some information about yourself. So I did that, and they were like, oh yeah, we're having auditions this date. And I was like, oh, okay, I can't make that. I mean, I was going to be in the UK for 3 months, and it was going to be a month before the end of the, I can't fly back, because they weren't going to pay for my flight, right? And I committed to all these shows, and I can't miss, I couldn't burn any bridges, like, because that was my life at the time. That was my career at the time. I couldn't burn all these bridges with these promoters, not turning up to the shows and canceling just to go do this audition that, I didn't know what it was, what was going to happen or anything like that. So I told them, and I don't think they moved it for me, but it did move. It just happened to move, but it was still towards the end. I had 2 or 3 dates in the end, and it was for the same guy. So I said, hey, I've got this opportunity to this. Do you mind if I leave a bit early? He said, yeah, no problem. So I ended up changing my flight and going back early. So I literally flew back to Tampa. I don't know if it was the same day, but literally flew back, grabbed my stuff, and then flew to Vegas to do the audition. And then did the audition. We got there, I think, Friday night, maybe. Watched the show. No, it wouldn't have been Friday night because it would have been.
Did y'all audition on Saturday?
I have no idea. Anyway, I can't remember the date. Flew there, watched the show the night before, and then the next day did the audition. And the funny story was that it was 3 other guys that I knew. So I was told to be by the box office at so and so time. So I went there. I was super early. I was the first one there, and as I'm just standing there looking around, don't know who to look for, and I'm just standing there, but I guess they'll know who to look for me. So I'm standing there.
Look for the giant guy. The little guy is gonna find the giant guy.
I'm looking around, and I'm like, okay. And then in the distance, I see what looks like one of my friends, like wrestling friends, and I'm like, comes closer. He keeps walking, and I'm like, hey, what's up, man? How you doing? Imagine seeing you here in Vegas. He's like, yeah, hey, yeah. So he doesn't move for a second. I'm like we stop talking, kind of, and he's like, wait, are you here for the? No, we're here for the. Yeah. So we're just like kind of laughing about it, thinking it's funny. And then as we're laughing about it, another one of the wrestlers walks by, and we're like,
I know him.
"Wait a minute, are you here for that? Are you here for that? Are you here for that?" And then another guy came, and we were all like, we all knew each other, so it was like a fun audition that day. Like, because obviously beforehand you're nervous, because you obviously want to, you don't go for an audition that you don't want, right? So
Well,
we did the audition, and it was just a lot of fun for us, to be honest.
that was a crazy day because I came into work and Brenna, we have a green room at CA that's kind of in the middle of everything for those tuning in that aren't familiar with Backstage. And so when you get there to clock in, we're kind of hanging out and we have sodas and stuff. And I come in and Brenna was like, we need to go upstairs to the training room right now. And I was like, why? And we don't ever go up to the training room. She was like, come on. So it was her and Liz, shocker, that so we go up the back way and there's a door with like a window and we like peek in the door and I still have no idea what we're going up there for. And we just see like these there's four of you, right? Like giant people with man buns, like picking Gabby up and just throwing him. And we were like, what is happening? And so then we're all like, oh my God, it's the guys we don't know why they're here. This is amazing. And so then you all come down and I don't know if you remember that, but we were all like, bye.
No, not at all. No.
Oh my
He
God.
was,
It's so huge because all the acrobats are not huge.
Yeah. Well, we probably looked even bigger. Well,
Yeah.
yeah. It's funny how like your impressions of stuff, like you have no idea how things are, right? When I was there, it was just like, for example, Gabby, that day I didn't know why. No, I don't think I knew what he did in the show because he wasn't wearing makeup. And when you watch the show, everyone looks so different, right? So I just thought, and I also assumed that he would be getting paid for doing that that day. You just assume that because poor guy, he had to do it with four guys, run the same thing over and over and over and over again, and it was just like nonstop. I remember thinking that it was brutal for him, you know what I mean? And I was just thinking, oh yeah, I'm sure this guy's getting paid like extra to do this, because obviously you just have a complete different idea about how things work and whatnot. But yeah, it was crazy. And I remember I talked to York for about half an hour that day, and I thought, oh, what a nice guy.
When you came, because ultimately you got chosen to do the chief archer, and then we had to figure out like you had a beard at some point and all of these extra things. I do remember having a conversation with you about the culture, like backstage, between like working in kind of a corporate professional wrestling versus working in kind of a corporate professional theater environment. Do you remember or have any recollections about just the different feelings between the two entities, I guess?
Yeah, funny story before that because I can't remember what you said. It's something about hair and makeup that made me think about that. So
your goatee.
So the funny story was, I think I did the audition, right? I was like really tan, dyed beard, dyed hair because I dye my hair, and dye my beard, and then I turned up like to work, which was bad of me actually. I probably should have done better. I'm pale and I've got like a ginger beard and.
Oh yeah, we were like, oh.
You guys didn't realize, then you realize you had to dye my hair and stuff like that, and that my skin, because they took the color of my mayo. So what they do is the mayo, we wear like a lycra suit. So they took the color of my skin from that, so they matched the color to your skin, that because it's supposed to look like skin for people who haven't seen the show. So
I didn't realize they matched it to your tan one.
So they matched it to my tan one. So when I turned up and I was a lot paler without that fake tan, it didn't really match anymore. So it was okay because I can't remember. It wasn't a big deal.
No, I remember that, and because you had so much colorful makeup on too, I think it kind of hit it. But I do remember we had to have a very serious hair conversation amongst ourselves of, okay, we have to figure out the rotation of when we have to see like how fast does his hair grow, because you can tell like your hair is a lot lighter, and they wanted the dark, so it was. When are we going to fit that in? Who's going to do it? We have to do a rotation. How much hair color do we have to buy? Like, all of this, the logistics, because you were a ginge.
Yeah. And then back to the culture, I can't remember what I told you. And like, couldn't. I don't know.
I just remember you being like, everybody's really nice. And when they compliment me, like during training, you didn't believe them. I remember having that conversation with you that it took you a minute to realize that it wasn't condescending or like when they're like, dude, that was a great job, that it wasn't like, but blah, 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 blah.
Well,
And
yeah, I think it's a little different because in wrestling, everyone's competing for the same spot, right? Nobody was really competing with me for my spot, right? So
mm-mm.
it wasn't that competition. In wrestling, everyone is, even though the results are predetermined, you're out to create your character, make your character the best and the most popular and whatnot. Because obviously that's how you grow in that thing. So it's a lot
Right.
in that way. I think that was one of the biggest differences is that not that people don't work together there, but everyone was there. More to everyone wanted to make you look good. Everyone wanted that kind of synergy, I guess, would be a way. And not that people don't want to have a great match in wrestling. It's just it can be a little bit more challenging sometimes in trying to, you know,
Yeah.
everyone to do the best for themselves, and it's just a different mindset, and it's a different goal orientated thing, I guess.
Yeah. At the end of the day, they're trying to put on this giant spectacular with all of these moving elements and people and stuff. And so, yeah, we need you to be the best that you can be. And you're also in like fight scenes and stuff. So, you're having other people in your hands, literally throwing them into a giant hole
Yeah.
and all of that. But how did so you became the chief archer, which was super fun. And of course, your most favorite part of the day was coming to get your hair done by me or Lauren. And then I remember you was started kind of dabbling around in real estate down in Florida because you still had your place down there. And then now with COVID, that seems to have grown into now you have wrestling with real estate. So what is that kind of about? This new part of
Yeah.
your chapter?
Yeah, I thought you were going a different way with that question. Well, and I'll answer what I thought you were going to ask. I thought you were going to ask a little bit more about performing and how different performing is to in Cirque compared to wrestling, right? It's the same, but it's different, right? Because wrestling is a lot more. I'm just making all my own questions now, but I
I
think
love
that
it. It's fun.
but I think that's interesting for people to hear. Is that you're both in front of a live audience, right? But it's and it has that performance component, and it's live, and things can go wrong, and it's that live theater, so it's cool. But in wrestling, it's a lot different. You can wrestle someone 100 nights, same person, try and do the same match 100 times in a row, and it will never, ever, ever, ever be the same because there's so many things that can change. It's not A B C D E F G, right? It'll be you go to A and then to D and then to you just
To R.
you don't connect the dots the same. There's parts that you get to, but what happens in between is up for interpretation, right? Whereas in car, it always happens A B C D E. You're always going to stand here at a certain point. You're always going to do this, and it obviously has to be that way. But in wrestling, it's always different, and also there's a lot more crowd participation and interaction
Oh yeah.
in wrestling. It's in car
Screaming and
we don't look for that in car. You're not breaking that fourth wall per se, but in wrestling you kind of do, especially in live events, not non-televised events. So that is completely different, right? So it's kind of in a way wrestling was more, I hate to say more exciting, and there's a better way to say that because that means that car's not exciting. Car is super exciting and I love it, but there's
more visceral, maybe.
more what?
More visceral, more it was like at the moment there's just a lot more kinetic energy, I feel like,
Yeah,
in wrestling
yeah,
with their
yeah,
screaming and engaging and
yeah,
um
yeah. So
you know
that was the biggest difference because people always ask me that question. So that's the biggest difference. So
well,
then,
how was that transition though whenever you came to Cirque? And then in most ways it's a very traditional theater show. You have cues, you have appointments, you have trainings, you have blocking and stage directions, and like for a person coming from like a film, television type. I mean, wrestling is its own niche. So
It wasn't bad because we always had to do a bunch of stuff with wrestling. It wasn't just wrestling. There was so going training
it was
and being,
okay.
yeah, oh yeah, you always had to be on time with wrestling anyway. It was like, that rule. If you unless you're 15 minutes early, you're late, right? It was always that rule. So that part was it wasn't a huge change. The biggest change was being in the same place every night and doing the same thing. Doing the same thing over and over, which can be fun, but also can be a challenge as well, right? To find that
Yeah.
um, I don't know how to say it, but you know what I mean. That can be a challenge in itself. So yeah, and then anyway, back to the real estate thing. So the real estate thing was what happened was, as I said, in 2014, my contract wasn't renewed with WWE, and all of a sudden I'm like, okay, what do I do now? I need a plan B. Where do I go from here? And I had no plan B, zero, nothing whatsoever. I had my captaincy trade, but I don't know if that even would have translated here to the US. And it's hard going from being on TV and all these pay-per-views and traveling the world to then going to do a regular job, right?
Oh, yeah, I can
You know
imagine
that
that would be.
you know what I mean? It's like, it's hard enough like giving up on everything that you worked for and not giving up or having to, that's kind of taken away to some extent. And then, going to work at McDonald's or something like that. I'm not knocking anyone that works at McDonald's, but
They're just very different.
they're very different. And it's just, I don't know, maybe it was an ego thing for sure. But then I found real estate investing through, I just bought a house at the time, and the mortgage was 25-50 at the time. I was like, okay, I can't afford this. I need to rent it out. So I rented
I'm
out,
like,
became
oh my god.
what they called an accidental landlord. So I became a landlord by accident because I had to. So I rented out the place, started researching real estate because we need to find a tenant and understand the tenant laws and how to get a tenant in and how to do a background check and all this. So we did that, and then I came across a book called Rich Dad Poor Dad. So if anyone's interested
Oh, I
in
remember that book.
you've read that book?
I know. I remember though when it came out and it was very big. I probably
Still,
should read it.
it's an amazing book. So anyone who like wants to, it's just about finances in general. Somewhat, it's just about mindset in terms of what is an asset and what is a liability. So an asset is something that makes you money, and a liability is what costs you money. And the book kind of explains that. It almost all real estate investors have read that book. So if anyone like just read it out of interest, you can read it. It's called Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. Read that book, got interested in real estate, and realized I could create this life for myself that has no ceiling, right? You can create as much wealth for yourself, or create the lifestyle where you don't hardly work and you're in control of anything, and it's like a business almost to some extent. And you can create a lot of wealth through it, and it's just amazing. And it's not how people think, right? You don't have to go through the MLS and through an agent and have a ton of money to do it. There's all these kinds of techniques and strategies and stuff, that niches that you can do in real estate that it's for everyone. It absolutely is for everyone. So I started when the pandemic hit and I was just at home, and I figured I needed to really ramp up my stuff. I started doing a whole bunch more of interviews. I've done a ton of interviews. It's on my YouTube channel, which is called Wrestling with Real Estate. I also have a podcast called the WWRE podcast. I couldn't call it with Wrestling with Real Estate because someone had bought it already, unfortunately. So yeah, and then I've got my Barri WWRE, which is my Instagram as well. So if anyone wants to go check it out there.
I'll put your
yeah.
website up here because you can go to your podcast through your website, right?
Yeah, and also my website, wrestlingwithrealestate.com. So if you just something to wrestlingwithrealestate.com. So just for anyone who's interested, there's a whole bunch of information on there through the podcast and the YouTube, and you never know, if I help one person, that'll be really cool to me. So.
And then you're still investing though. You just invested in a property in Chicago. Where were you?
Close. I bought it this year, yeah. So I have a property in Cincinnati and looking to
Cincinnati.
looking to buy more. Looking to partner up with people. The great thing, what I do is I invest in apartments, smaller apartment complexes for now. I'm looking to grow bigger, but the beauty about apartment complexes is that it lends itself to partnering up with people who want to invest their money because it's bigger, right? If I buy a $50,000 home, how much money can you really have people invest? But if I buy a $2 million property, you can get, and obviously use financing, but you can use people to partner up with. I do all the work. I put some of my own money in, of course, and they partner up with me. They don't have to do any of the work, and then we all share in the returns, you know, and it's really cool because, you know, the bigger you go, the more money you can kind of make as well. So that's what I'm kind of focused on as well now. So, but, you know, hopefully I'll be back at Cirque du Soleil and we'll be back at some point. But yeah, I'm focused on that as well now. And it's fun to me. I really, really enjoy it. And I think it's amazing. So if anyone who wants to like learn more about it, hear more about it, they can, you know, you can reach out to me or watch any of my podcasts, or just read Rich Dad Poor Dad. It can send you down the path of
doing that.
Yeah. It's not what everyone thinks. Everyone thinks you have to be Donald Trump to invest in real estate. Which
No.
Right?
Do you miss performing?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I don't think you realize how much you miss it until it's kind of gone, right? You know, I was always super. Not calling anyone out in particular here, but I was always super grateful for being in the show, and I always used to try and practice, be like, wow, like when we would go down at the end, I would try and like look at the theater and be like, this is just so cool, because we do 10 shows a week, so it's so easy to get caught up in the another day, let me just do my cues, let me just get home, and you're like, no, this is really cool, right? And I think a lot of people do, and they don't mean to, but I think they do, right? I'm not calling out anyone in particular.
It becomes your normal.
Yeah, and you just don't realize how cool what we do is. And I think this time we'll have, you know, I don't want it to happen to anyone, but I think it can be really cool for a lot of people to be like, wow, what we did was really cool. It's an amazing show. It's an amazing job. We're so lucky to have done what we did and to continue to do what we do. So,
yeah. One of the questions said, ask him about BRRR strategy.
The BRRR strategy, yeah. Buy, refinance. I got that completely wrong. Buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. So so what happens is, so there's a way to kind of invest and get all your money back. So I've got to go, by the way, because Julie's got to go and do it. But I'll explain this quickly. It just shows you one of the strategies, right? So show you that you don't need that much money. So you can buy a property that, say, is going to be worth 100,000 once you've fixed everything up, right? But you only spend 80,000 of your money to buy it. What you can do is buy that property, fix it up, get it to where it's worth 100,000, but you've only put 80,000 in. You can then refinance that property at 80% of what it's worth. So you pull out all that $80,000, and then you have a property that you essentially didn't put any of your own money in. It's got $20,000 worth of equity. You have a renter in there, and then you can just keep doing that. So you keep rolling. So it's absolutely really crazy strategy, because you can take that initial lump sum of money
and just keep using it.
Keep using it, yeah. And then you keep buying these rentals, and you get $200 or $300 of cash flow in each, and you have no money, and then you buy another one, and then it just slowly goes, and you have equity in each, and then every year it's paying down, the tenant's paying down the mortgage, you have tax benefits, hopefully it's appreciating so much, of the value's going up as well. So it's called the buy, renovate, rent, refinance, repeat. BRRR.
I was like, what is he saying? Well, I know you have to get Kai, your little one. Is he right there?
You have to go, Jules? When you need to go? Right now? Okay. So Julie, by the way, it's my wife cutting it short. I know everyone's loving this. It's like the best interview they've ever heard.
The best ever. Well, so I miss you, and I miss
I'm so sorry to everyone. If you guys want to give my wife some hate mail, go ahead and write to her. And
yeah, right. They're going to look at your wife and be like, oh my God, she's gorgeous. What is she doing with him? Just kidding.
She's
laughing.
Come here. Oh, she's in her underwear, so she doesn't want to come.
Well, we'll catch up again soon.
If she comes over.
We'll catch up again soon. Give Kai lots of kisses and hugs for me. And hi, Jules.
Hi, Megan. How's it going?
Good. We're doing our little. You're watching?
Yeah.
Aww.
Boring.
Oh, she's so much nicer than I am to you.
Oh my God. Try living with her. Okay, cool.
Bye,
well, it was fun. Yeah. If anyone has any other questions, just send them over to me, and I'll send it. You can post it in the Facebook or whatever.
Absolutely. I'll talk to you soon. Good luck with everything.
Thank you. Thanks, Magdalene.
Bye.
Bye.